All right, guys, let's talk a little Cavs. Tonight will be DeAndre Hunter's second game with the Cleveland Cavaliers. He had an impressive debut on Monday in his first game. Jason, you wrote an article this morning for The Athletic detailing how the championship window is now officially open for the Cleveland Cavaliers after this DeAndre Hunter trade. Before we dive into what we expect from Hunter tonight and a potential matchup against Brandon Ingram, who had also been tied to the Cavs for quite a while, do you want to tell the people out there why they should check out your article and a little bit of what's in there?
If you don't want to get buried in the cap jargon, I don't blame you. It's a lot. It's tedious. It took me literally probably 2 to 3 days to wade through it all. Bottom line is they've got 3 years. And that I'm not saying that as that's a bad thing. I'm saying that as that's a really long time in the NBA. 3 years is an eternity. So they've got 3 Junes, really. They've got this June, next June, and the following to win a championship. And then it's probably going to end for this, at least as this unit is built. But really, I mean, I don't know how much more deeper you want to go to than that. You can look at Evan Mobley's if Evan Mobley makes an All-NBA team at the end of this season, that's going to dictate how much he makes. He could make more than the max that he's already getting, and that will impact their future. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds because I don't think people really care. But the important thing to know is they've really got 3 seasons with this group currently intact. That's why the Hunter trade was big, because his contract lines up exactly with that window. They've got him for this year and then 2 more.
Right.
So they can keep this group together. They can make a run for 3 postseasons. They got a chance to win a championship.
So they acquired DeAndre Hunter. Check out Jason's article on The Athletic. We highly recommend it. Now that the dust is settled, they pushed their chips in for Hunter. As Jason just alluded to, the championship window officially open for 3 years. Let's just go big picture real quick before we dive into tonight's game. Knowing all the small forwards that had been at least connected in rumors to the Cavs, the Ingrams, the Hunters, the Cam Johnsons, knowing what we know about what they had to give up for Hunter, knowing what we know about how he fits from a defensive and offensive standpoint now, at the end of the day, was that the best possible option for the Cavs to acquire to be that 3-and-D wing alongside the core 4 ball?
I mean, I think it's an impossible question to answer because he's played 1 game, so we don't know yet what his fit was. I mean, it looked fine in the first game, but it's 1 game. And we don't know, like, it seems like Cam Johnson would have been a better choice. But that, obviously, the Nets were looking for a lot more because it made sense for the Nets to trade Cam Johnson. And it wasn't like they just didn't trade him to the Cavs. They didn't trade him, period. So I'll say that he was the best guy they could have gotten without giving up an important piece on the roster. And as Jason said, and I know you guys have talked about it, I'm certainly not an expert on it, but once you reach these aprons in the NBA salary cap situation, it's very hard to add players of significance. Correct, Jason?
Yeah, they can't use their mid-level
exactly
this summer.
So they had essentially 1 spot to fill before it became hard to fill, and I think they got the best player they could have gotten reasonably. And so I think it was the right move. As you said, they're all signed for the next 3 Junes. And doesn't mean they can't still be good after that. We'll see what happens. But who's worried about 4 years from now? I don't care.
Right.
Let's see if they can win a championship in the next 3 years. It certainly doesn't feel impossible because, I think we'd all agree Boston's probably still, I mean, they are in Vegas the favorite. And Oklahoma City's real tough.
Boston won't be 2 years from now, though.
Okay, that's one thing. Plus, like, as good as Boston is, and obviously you'd have to give them the edge over the Cavs if both teams are healthy in the playoffs. But not by a lot, especially if the Cavs have home court. Does anybody feel that the Cavs wouldn't have a reasonable chance to beat the Celtics in a 7-game series?
No, I don't feel. I mean, that was worded kind of wonky. I believe the Cavs absolutely could beat Boston. Would I pick them? Would I put money on them? I don't know.
No, but would you give them a 40% chance?
100%.
So there you go. I mean, that's a pretty. So the Cavs have a. If you'd give the Cavs a 40% chance to beat Boston, well, then you'd give them higher than that against anybody else. So that means the Cavs have a reasonable chance. They're the 3rd favorite in the odds to win the title. And who knows, if they were, and by the way, if they were in the West and Oklahoma City was in the East, the Cavs would be the 2nd favorite. So, I think a lot of people think they're 2A, 2B with Oklahoma City. So the Cavs are right there. If anything, you'd think if they're healthy, and it's a big if, they'll get even better next year because they'll have more chemistry with all these guys.
Yep.
And obviously Evan Mobley's game has really blown up. So yeah, I think he was the best guy they could have gotten at this time, and they have a legitimate small forward, a legitimate starting caliber small forward for the first time since LeBron James. And so I like where they're at right now.
He's a really good player.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to be an all-star.
No.
He has to be better than what they had.
Yeah.
And he obviously is. The biggest question that I have with him, and I think everybody does, is can he stay healthy?
Yeah.
And we don't know. We don't know.
Right.
But he is an excellent defender. Like he can score. Like all the things that we've been dying to see out of Okoro and some of these other guys who've been Dean Wades of the world, like rotating through that fifth spot as a starter. It's like this guy sort of has it all. Can he stay healthy? That's the big question that I have. But I like the move, and frankly, like we were all about it, talking about it before they made the move. It's like, how are they even going to get this deal done? Like when they made that move, I'm like, sweet.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done it if I were the Hawks, but whatever.
Right.
They did.
And Karis LeVert was not going to be here next year anyway. So even if you say, well, Karis was they didn't give up nothing. Karis LeVert's not nothing.
No, he's a good player.
But
He's
Hunter's
having a good
better, and LeVert was gone at the end of the year.
Hunter gives them something that Karras did not. And Karras gave them something that Hunter doesn't really have in terms of an offensive
But they
game.
need the Hunter thing
They
more.
need the Hunter. Yeah.
Yes.
There's easier ways, I think, to replace the Karras piece than they didn't have the Hunter piece.
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot of layers to this. And I want to get back to the Atlanta piece at the end. But so ideally, like perfect world, I think Cam probably fit them a little bit better.
Right, sure.
But you're not getting Cam for the package that you gave Atlanta.
Right.
And for reasons that we don't necessarily need to get into right now, they needed to hold on to the 31 pick for a lot of these apron issues that we're talking about coming up down the road. Who knows what kind of condition the franchise will be in 31. There may be opportunities to use that down the road. That pick's going to gain value the closer you get to 31,
Sure.
so there may be opportunities later
Yeah.
to use that. So it was wise to hold on to that piece. The Jalen Tyson piece, they're going to need young guys who don't make a ton of money.
Sure.
As this thing grows, especially if you look past these next 3 years, you're going to need guys like that. So for what they gave up, I'll go back to, I think I mentioned this on the show a couple weeks ago, when they traded for Timo Mozgov. I was having a conversation with David Griffin about it, and there were bigger names available at the time at center. I don't remember who they were. And Griff was like, I don't need another star. Like, we got Kevin, Kyrie, and LeBron. I don't need a star. I need a big mother bleeper who can fill the lane. That's what we need. And he only makes $5 million. Like, he was a perfect fit.
Right.
And that's sort of, somebody in Jasper, Indiana is calling me. That's sort of what that's sort of what the Hunter thing is. There was bigger name. Brandon Ingram's a bigger name.
Yeah, right.
There were bigger names that they could have gone and got, but Brandon Ingram just signed a contract for twice as much as what DeAndre Hunter makes. Hunter's contract fits with this window. Hunter's game on the floor fits with what this team needs. So you could get a bigger name or maybe a piece that maybe fits you a little bit better, but for the price it cost you in trade capital, for what he cost you financially, for the length of his contract, for his age, all of that fits right into where they're at pretty seamlessly. So if like going into this, if you just said like you got two options, who do you want that's a realistic target that they could get, I probably would have said Cam Johnson and DeAndre Hunter, and they got one of those guys.
Yeah. And ultimately, it's one game. I certainly don't want to make any sweeping judgments based on one game. But was it a coincidence that Evan Mobley had one of his best games? Because now he's playing, especially in the beginning and the end of the game, with four guys that are threats, legitimate threats to score. I know Jared Allen's not going to shoot, but like you can't leave Jared Allen wide open because then he goes to the basket and he dunks. So like,
well,
guys
Jared doesn't tend to drift very far from the rim, but I hear
that's true. But like the other guys that were playing, what I'm saying is the other guys that were playing instead of Hunter, defenses weren't as worried about those guys. Hunter's more dangerous offensively, and so you can't help off him.
He's more of a threat than Isaac Okoro at the 3-point line.
Right, exactly.
That's for sure.
You're not in the playoffs. You're not worried about Isaac Okoro. You're gonna double team Evan Mobley or double team somebody else.
I will be curious to sort of poke around and see how do you guard them now in a playoff series. You know,
Yeah.
if you're an opposing team and you got to scheme them, because it was always you're playing 4-on-5 if Isaac's on the floor. And
Yeah.
and Isaac's a great kid, and I know it sounds like I'm picking on him. I don't mean to pick on him. But opposing teams would just leave him open. They
Right.
just wouldn't guard him.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can do it. Like, you have to pick something when
Yeah.
you're facing the Cavs, but I don't think that they can do it quite to the extreme that they were with Isaac. And the Atlanta thing's interesting because I kind of dug in on it the last couple of days because everyone said the Cavs just stole him from Atlanta. You know, Barkley said, I don't know what Atlanta's thinking. I think I understand a little bit better why Atlanta did what they did. I know people in Cleveland don't care. But, like,
I'm curious.
but they had, like, they've got a plethora of wings. They got a glut of wings. When they signed Hunter to this contract, they didn't have Ricochet, the number 1 overall pick. They didn't have Dyson. They didn't have these guys who have emerged as really good players.
Jalen Johnson.
Jalen Johnson. Yeah, Jalen Johnson. So they're deep at wing, and they're paying him starter money. They owed him $40 million over the next couple of years. Atlanta's coming up. They're behind the Cavs. But they're coming up to where they're thinking they could make some noise in a couple of years. So I think they wanted to get off some of that future money. I am still a little bit surprised that they didn't get a 1 for him.
Right.
But I understand Atlanta's motives now because like I said, I've spent the last 2 or 3 days trying to dig in on this trade and from a cap perspective and from motivation. So I think I understand a little bit better. And I just think that the two sides aligned. Both sides fit each other's needs well.
And obviously nobody was willing to give up 1, or they would have traded him somewhere else.
They would have traded him somewhere else.
You know,
he's not a perfect player.
No,
he's
but
not.
But he fits the Cavs really well.
Timo Mozgov was not a perfect player.
Right.
But that year, and Timo didn't even help him win the championship.
That's
really.
true.
But the year that they got him, they needed a big body in the lane, and he filled exactly what they needed.
Right.
So from that, and to your point about the injuries, you need him to stay healthy for 8 weeks, from the middle of April to the middle of June. You need 8 weeks to where he's.
I don't need him to play 40 minutes a night here right now.
No.
I need him just to get dialed in.
Yep.
Is he, when they're playing the Celtics, is he defending Tatum?
Will he start on him? Well, see, like if you're going to switch everything.
Then no, he's not if you're to switch.
Because you want him to switch onto him.
Gotcha.
So you can look at it, so you can cross-match a start, knowing if they're going to run pick and roll, we're going to switch. Although if you cross-match, they may not set as many. You know what I mean?
Yes. So what's the plan? What's the plan defensively against Boston with this team? What do you think?
Jason and I talked a little bit about this on the Cavs show Tuesday morning. Kenny Atkinson said after the Minnesota game that, and Jason asked the question, it was a great question. He's not afraid to try stuff in the regular season, test stuff out, as opposed to other coaches who keep it extremely vanilla and try to save it for the postseason so there's nothing on tape.
Which is stupid.
Well, I mean, that's
different philosophies.
I don't know that one's right. I mean, Ty Lue did that. Ty played everything vanilla defensively.
Well, but that's different.
And then they would change
proven
everything.
guys that played, you know.
And then he would change, like the Cavs would defend in the playoffs completely differently than they did.
Right, but with Hunter being a new guy.
And Kenny having to get to know these guys and not being familiar.
Yes.
And Kenny said, like, hey, we got to see it. We got to see it on the floor. We got to see it live. We got to see what it looks like. So and Kenny likes to mix it up. He'll throw zone. At teams. He's talking about how he played a boxing one against Ant the other night. And so they're trying different things to get different looks at guys. If you're asking how they match up against Boston, I mean, I think Hunt guards either Tatum or Brown to start. You disagree, Mike?
Are we assuming it's the core 4 plus Hunter in the starting 5?
Yeah.
For the sake of this,
yes.
And down the stretch, the minutes that matter.
You probably start Allen on Porzingis.
Yeah.
Mobley on Tatum, Hunter on Brown.
Okay.
Or those two could swap.
Yeah.
And then the guards on Mitchell on
that's
Holiday.
That's a big difference.
But and we saw it even when they played here a couple weeks ago, I guess a month ago. Whoever Garland's guarding, they're going to set a screen with. And it's going to be on the Cavs to either fight over the switch and not give that up easily, or if they're going to switch, Boston hunts mismatches more than any team in basketball.
Say again?
Boston hunts mismatches more than any team in basketball.
And we saw that in the game here where Garland wound up on Tatum.
Right. But
game long.
Which I get, but before Hunter, they had 2 problems on defense, essentially. Now they only have 1.
Yes. And if Porzingis is setting that high screen and rolling, the guy that's coming over to help before the first rotation, is now not,
Yeah.
in some instances, a 6'4" Max Strus or a 6'4" Isaac Okoro. It's a
Right.
6'8" with a 7'3" wingspan, DeAndre Hunter.
Can we get a
One more thing
Porzingis tweaked knee or something?
One more thing with Porzingis,
Yeah.
Porzingis, with Hunter, though,
Yeah.
that I think goes back to Jason's point. You have 3 Junes, and this is why, although I was Team Johnson over Hunter, too, I think, considering what they gave up, it's perfect. Every playoff series is different. And just like in the football postseason, I don't think baseball applies. To win a series, you don't have to necessarily play your style of basketball. You have to play the best style of basketball to beat said opponent.
Sure.
And now the Cavs have the flexibility and the option to play big if they have to
Yeah.
play small if they have to play with more shooting if they have to.
Yeah.
DeAndre Hunter, we haven't talked about this a ton on the show, ranks in the 90th percentile of all players in the NBA in points per post-up possession. If they got to go and attack the mismatch, vice versa, and they have a smaller guy guarding DeAndre Hunter, you can put him in the post, and he can score for guys better than most players in the NBA. He gives them the lineup flexibility to play big, to play small, to play long, to play shooting, or to play big without sacrificing enough size defensively to match up with any team in the Eastern
Do
Conference.
you think, to that point, do you think maybe even against Boston, we could see an occasional lineup where either Donovan or Darius are out there with Hunter, Allen, Mobley, and Dean Wade?
Yeah.
Hunter, Allen,
Mobley, Wade, with
Mobley,
either
Wade.
Darius or Donovan.
I'd want a little more shooting.
I was
but
just going to
I
say
can see
that.
it.
I would swap out. Is there someone to swap out Allen for to give you another shooter?
Okay.
Who's got length?
If you go Strus, Mitchell,
Yeah, that's not the length, though.
uh,
It would be like Donovan, Hunter, Wade, Mobley.
There's nobody else.
Yeah, there's not
It would've-
another.
you're not putting Tristan in there.
No. I guess it would have to be Allen.
Yeah.
I think you are a little short on shooting with
Yeah.
that lineup.
But then you got, but defensively,
But defensively, you're really
you
long.
could really, I mean,
You're really long.
Hell, we talked about this. If you have one possession, you need one stop.
yeah.
Boston has the ball with 12 seconds left. Cavs are up 1. You can put out a lineup of Okoro, Hunter, Wade, Allen, Mobley. And that's as damn
Yeah.
good a defensive 5 as you
Yeah.
can find.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that you
Yeah.
can get in that specific circumstance all that
Well, I
often,
mean,
but yeah.
coming out in ATO,
Yeah.
they've got the ball side out of bounds.
Right, yeah.
And you got a timeout left to get out of that
yeah,
right after.
that'd be a pretty dangerous group
And
defensively.
This will never happen because he's not here, but we talked about the potential of buying out Ben Simmons. If you had swapped Simmons with Okoro in that situation, and you
Yeah.
had 6'8" Hunter, 6'9" Wade, 6'10" Simmons.
Ben Simmons, what a
6'10"
punk
Allen,
he is.
and
He's a
6'11".
loser. Why did he sign with the Clippers, right?
He has a house in L.A. He likes the weather.
What a
Big
loser.
role.
The Clippers stink.
He could have a bigger role.
They don't stink.
They didn't have much of a
They're
role.
mediocre.
They didn't have much of a role for him here, and they wouldn't be able to re-sign him.
Yeah. That's
Is
the
there
way it
anybody in the buyout market that they still may be interested in, or is it nobody else?
Did you hear
It's
Stephen A.
slim
Smith
pickings right
say
now.
that the,
Oh my
Oh,
God! We were
God.
talking- I was
Dwight Howard
texting about that yesterday.
That's going to be overtime, by the way.
okay, all right, I'll
Did
say
you
it.
hear
We're gonna say that for
Windhorst?
overtime.
Okay, well,
I
I'll say
saw
it.
the whole
we'll
clip.
say it
Yeah.
for
I texted Brian and said, I'm calling him Stephen Smith for 24 hours. I've suspended the A. He's lost the use of the
Yeah.
A
He
for
was
24
losing
hours.
his mind,
Yeah.
Brian Windhorst. Go ahead, Mike.